Aloha, folks, and welcome to this latest edition of Five Questions, where we chat with newsmakers and those involved in communities here at home and around the country on issues that are important to us. Today, we talk with Tim Phillips. He is president of Americans for Prosperity. Tim, aloha to you.
Great to be with you, Rick.
Tim, I was wondering if we could start our five questions with a very basic question, which is tell us about yourself and about your organization, please, Tim.
Americans for Prosperity is a grassroots organization. We have just over 1.8 million activists in all 50 states, and our mission is to go out and work to preserve economic freedom by limiting the size of government, cutting down on wasteful government spending and deficits and debt, lowering taxes, and then pushing back against the regulations and governmental red tape that often inhibits job growth. And my background, I was in the political arena for many years as a campaign consultant, but I always wanted to be more involved on the issues front. And so 7 years ago, I was alive at the start of Americans for Prosperity when we launched the organization.
Excellent. Question number two, pretty straightforward as well. What defines prosperity, Tim, and is America therefore prosperous? Prosperous, sorry.
That's a great question. I think that prosperity is being able to go out and achieve the American dream. And to us, the American dream means a person from any station of life, no matter where they began in life, having the freedom and the ability to go out and to the best of their ability to become whatever they want to become. Maybe it's starting a small business. Maybe it's being active in their community and working at a factory somewhere to pay the bills, but being active in their community or church or synagogue. Whatever it is, having the ability and the environment in this great country to go out and make those dreams come true. And I think the American dream is endangered. It's endangered by a government that's getting ever bigger, ever more intrusive, and ever more expensive. And that's choking off this prosperity and this opportunity at the American dream.
Government, of course, plays a role in our lives. I have a mantra here, Tim, that says that government touches every part of your life, whether you like it or not. And
that's right.
Since that is a reality, what idyllic role should government play in our lives vis-a-vis prosperity?
It should enforce the rule of law. There should be a basic rule of law that businesses and individuals can count on, whether it's property rights or whether it's if you invest in businesses or whatever you do, you can count on a basic rule of law being upheld. Number two, it's providing a governmental environment where the currency, the dollar, is sound, doesn't dramatically fluctuate because that harms Americans when the currency fluctuates. And then the third key component is for government to do the things that the private sector really cannot do as well. For example, providing defense spending, obviously, to providing other basic services. And look, we do believe that a baseline safety net is a reasonable thing. The problem is it gets bigger and bigger under this government. It encroaches further and further up to the point where you're subsidizing a lot of Americans as opposed to providing a safety net during times of dire strain.
Very well put, by the way. We're talking with Tim Phillips, Americans for Prosperity. He is the president. Tim, what's the best way for us to contact you and your organization?
Our website is americansforprosperity.org, americansfor prosperity.org. We have a very active web presence on Facebook. Folks can join us there. But the beautiful thing about technology today and the Internet boom that we've seen over the last 20 years is that you can now, 15 years really, you can now get involved no matter where you are in these crucial public policy battles we're having this day.
Amen to that. Question number 4 is one of political in nature. Is there one political party that people can turn to that is actively supporting the advancement of our collective American prosperity?
I believe that both parties have major problems. I do. Now, typically on issues of spending and taxation, Republicans have been a little better. They have been. But when they have been left to their own devices without accountability, they've gone off the rails. I think about President Bush and the Republican majorities in the House and Senate in the early 2000s. and they simply spent too much. They built up new entitlements like the Medicare Prescription B drug program, like the steel tariffs, other things they did that were just too expensive and too big government-oriented. So I think far better is for there to be a strong, vibrant, free market, grassroots movement, the Tea Party movement, Talk Radio, Americans for Prosperity, who can hold both parties accountable. But I would say that Republicans, generally speaking, are better. We don't really favor a third party or new parties. I think our system, frankly, in this country, is the way constitutionally and the way the election laws are, it's better served by two parties. We just want to make sure we hold both parties accountable and that we never become just a captive appendage of either party.
Very well put. We'd like to continue with our question number 5, and feel free to elaborate, because I think this is an interesting perspective we can learn from you. Historically speaking, Tim, which were America's most prosperous times? And in your view, understanding what transpired at that point, can we return to a time such as those?
Well, the 1980s were a prosperous full decade. You had dramatic job growth that was sustained. You had economic growth that was very often running at 4, 5, 6, even 7, 8% per quarter. It was dramatic economic growth, again, that was sustained. It was driven by a lot of Reagan-era policies, the tax cuts, the regulatory rollback that the Reagan administration undertook. Also, they deregulated a lot of industries, whether it was the trucking industry, the airlines. They provided for more competition in the marketplace, which spurred growth as well. The 1920s, a lot of people want to attack that era as a prelude to the Great Depression, as if somehow the economic prosperity of the 20s caused the Great Depression. That's simply not true at all when you read American history and economic history, especially under Coolidge and some of the presidents then, up to Hoover. Hoover was not a free market president. He was a big government Republican. He really was when you look at his policies. But under Coolidge, we had dramatic economic growth in the 20s. But I'll give the Clinton era some credit. The Republican Congress and Clinton passed NAFTA, which was a free trade agreement that dramatically benefited our economy, created tens of thousands of jobs and new economic growth. The welfare reform in 1996 was a dramatic sea change in welfare reform that put millions of Americans back into the workplace and created an environment in which they could succeed. And we had good economic growth as well during that period of time. So those are the kind of eras we've had. And I think that when you look at where we are now, everything this administration has done, frankly, has been diametrically opposed to the policies that brought about the growth periods in our economy. And that's why you're seeing unemployment stuck over 9% for 24 of the last 26 months, which is a record going back to the last time it did that, just after World War II. And it's why you're seeing growth that is lower than most third world countries in South America or Africa at this point, literally.
Appreciate the perspective. I just wanted, just as a quick aside, I recall those days during the Clinton era, and I don't disagree. I think it's important to note that in 1996, President Clinton was, he was dragged kicking and screaming basically to the Welfare Reform Act that he had battled against in the previous.
And he vetoed it, I think it was 3 times. So
right.
I definitely agree with you. I'm not suggesting he was a proponent.
Sure.
But under divided government, he was worried about his reelection that year. Dick Morris, before he became a Fox commentator, was in the White House with Clinton, urging him to, get to the middle to protect his reelect. And I agree. I don't know that he ideologically wanted to do that, but he was, I think, forced back to the middle and back to the free market side by events and by his desire to get reelected.
And nonetheless, exactly, it was under his administration and with his signature, and an appropriate amount of due is due, so to speak. So well put in reminding us about that. Do want to find out, again, how folks can give you a look-see, Tim, and where folks should go.
Absolutely. Folks can look us up on AmericansForProsperity.org. I'll give you an example. Right now we have a television ad up in Ohio and Florida and running on a lot of social media networks across the country. that details President Obama's leadership failure in this debt limit deal. That's on our website at AmericansForProsperity.org. It's a $1.4 million buy. We thought it was very important at a time when the president wanted to do a victory lap over what I consider a failed debt limit deal that was not good for the country. We wanted to make sure folks know the real story. So people can see that on our website at AmericansForProsperity.org, FOR Prosperity.org. And they can find us on Facebook. Just search Americans for Prosperity on Facebook, and they'll see our page and our wall that has all the details as well. And we love for those to be interactive environments where people can get on and make a difference.
Tim, I can't thank you enough for the conversation today. I wish you all the best. And again, I hope you can join us back on the air soon.
Let's do it again, Rick. I'd love to.
That's a deal. Thank you, Tim. Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.